Well, the weather prophets snookered me again. They had forecast that we were going to have several days in a row of nice weather. It was going to be cold, but it was going to be nice. The last couple of days have been nice and dry. Yesterday was beautiful, but I just didn't have any energy. I wore myself out fooling with this stuff the day before. Puttered around a little bit, but I couldn't get much done. Well, it's supposed to have been nice again today, and then yesterday in the middle of the day they changed the forecast to a chance of rain and snow overnight, and then just cloudy skies today. Anyway, because I didn't feel like doing much yesterday, I took the afternoon off and we went for a drive. I went out in the woods out on the mountains there where I haven't been for 6 months or so. Had a beautiful drive. There's a beautiful view up there off of one of the bluffs where you can see for 50 miles. Well, we got up there and we were enjoying that, and the wind started coming in. This front started moving through and the wind started blowing, and before we get down off there we had gusts of 35-40 miles an hour, and luckily we got the hell out of the woods there before any branches or any trees came down on us. But the temperature warmed up into the mid to upper 30s. It had been right around freezing late last night. It started mixed rain and snow, and then it warmed up enough that it just rained, and we had heavy rain all night long and most of the morning this morning. Had a little break in it for a few minutes. I just came out to start going to work, and now it's starting to rain again. And I've got an appointment at 1:30 to get my glasses fixed. Anyway, I'll putt around out here a little bit and get this all ready to go. I brought those plates up here. I'd been holding off of bringing them up here because I didn't want them to get rusty after I ground all the paint off of them. I was just going to weld them on here, get ready to weld them on here. So I brought them up, and I was going to pick that timber up, that beam up, and slide those under there. Well, I just didn't have it in me to pick that up enough to slide those in there. So I went and got the jack. About 45 years ago or more, I found an old beat-up high-lift jack in a warehouse that was being torn down on the railroad. They tossed it aside, and it was pretty beat up, and I grabbed that, and I've used the heck out of it. It's pulled me out of many jams. I've used it for a winch, pulling my truck out of the ditch and all kinds of stuff, and it was just a great tool, but it had a couple of little defects in it. It was pretty worn, and sometimes it'd slip and stuff, and my wife didn't like it. So here a couple years ago she went on Amazon and bought one of these a new high lift jack. Well, it's not a high lift brand jack, it's a Chinese interpretation of one, and it's a piece of crap. But I got it out and jacked up this end of the timber and slid those plates underneath there. Now I got to get them underneath the other side, and I was picturing myself climbing up the ladder and picking that beam up there a little bit, slipping that plate underneath there. And after the fiasco I had on this side here with not being able to do it, I decided I'd use my machinery. So I got the Bobcat going. I'll bring it over there and stick the edge of the grapple underneath that timber and just pick it up a little bit, and then I can climb up the ladder and slip that plate underneath there. Oh, then I'll go ahead and start getting extension cords out and stuff for the welder, and getting the welder ready to go, and see if I can't get those welded on there today, even though it is raining. So I had a choice of which welder I was going to use, or whether I was going to use the Century 130 or the Miller 211. The Miller 211 makes a nicer weld, but I've got solid wire in it and a CO2 tank on it, and that works pretty good and makes a real nice weld on it. But the tank and everything makes it a little bit more awkward to handle. The 130, I've got flux core wire in it. It's just a single machine, so I could just stick it in the wheelbarrow and bring it up here and use it, so it's a little easier to use. Well, we've got a little gusty wind here every now and then today, so that eliminates the 211 with a shielding gas on it. I've used it outside okay, but if you have any kind of breeze at all, it blows that shielding gas away, and then the welds are like crap. So anyway, it's raining out here again. Oh, I gotta go put this camera away. I put the new wire in the wire feed welder and got it all set up in the Century 130. I put it up there on the Bobcat and raised it up there where I can get to it. I'm gonna go do this one first, and I'll get it tacked in, and then we'll go down around and do the other two. And once I get that done, then I can pick that timber up off of there and move it out of the way so I can go ahead and weld up without burning the timber up. Although that timber's pretty wet, it probably wouldn't burn up. Up the circuit breaker there, I forgot that I had that heater turned on that same circuit down in the basement. Got it turned off and the circuit breaker reset, so another crack at that. I got that one tacked down pretty good. That sizzled a little bit. I don't think it would have caught that wood on fire or charred it. It's pretty wet, but it was steaming and sizzling. Well, I went ahead and moved the welder around to the other side over there, and I'll go ahead and tack those other two down. Get those tacked down real good, and then I'm warming up the excavator. Once I get those two tacked down, then I'll take the excavator around there and move that timber out of the way, and then we can finish welding that down. A lot of fun out here in the rain and stuff again, in the cool weather and the rain again, and foggy helmet and all of that stuff, but it's a fact of life. Well, it finally quit raining. Well, I got everything out here to see if I can finish welding those plates on there. It's been raining all morning, but at least it's not as bad as the forecast was. It was forecast to get 2 inches of snow overnight. We had heavy rain all night long, but we didn't get any snow, thank goodness. Yet, almost 1 o'clock now, and it finally quit raining enough that I could get out here and do this. Once I get those welded on, then we have to get some Cora-Seal, which is a rust conversion coating, and paint those, and then I can put that timber back on there. So I went ahead and got my Miller 211 out to use today. I'd used that Century 130 yesterday, and it worked fine for doing the tack welds, or tacking down those plates. I got the first plate, which was the farthest one there, the third one on that new piling we just put in. I got it tacked down fine, and then this one on this end, it got tacked down fine, and then on the middle one there, on the third one I was working on, it started blowing the circuit breaker, so it took a little bit of time. Well, I didn't get a whole lot of welding done with it like that, so now I got to do a bunch of welding here now to get those all welded down and closed in. So I went ahead and got the Miller 211 out. So I'll go get that plugged in and turned on, and then we'll start welding. Well, the 211 has automatic setting on it for dummies like me. You can either set it if you're a good professional welder and know what you're doing and can see what's going on with it while you're welding. You can adjust the feed speed and the temperature control, but it also has an automatic setting. So I set it to 30 thousandths wire diameter, and that's 3/16 metal thickness. The plates are 3/16. Of course, the pipe is thicker than that, so hopefully that's enough, and that'll set everything up automatically. If it's not, then I'll change it and try to adjust it to make it work better, but that should make it work. This is the older model of the 211. It's a transformer model. The new models are an inverter model. They have an inverter instead of a transformer. The welders are quite a bit lighter. I read some reviews on them, which is the typical reviews. Some people hate them, say they burn up and don't work very well, and other people love them, so you can't really tell much from that. Well, anyway, this one works pretty good. It's wired up to 220, so it should work a little better, and then it's flat calm out here now. The gas shielding should work just fine out here. So I'll get to welding on that. Everything's all set up. All right, Eddie, eat your heart out. There's one welded on there. I had trouble there to start with. Where I started, there was a pretty good gap, and the wire kept going in the gap and not connecting, and then my gas flow was not right. I turned the gas on, and I got it a little bit high, so I undid it a little bit. Well, when I went to check, there wasn't hardly any coming out. But anyway, once I got that all set up, it worked out pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with that. Got it welded all the way around on the bottom, which is important in this country. That'll keep any rainwater or anything like that from going down there. That also makes up for my crappy welds. Some is good, more is better, but you make up for quality with quantity. So that one's done. I burnt my fingers a little bit. Put my hand on the top of that plate to hold myself up while I was doing something else, and it was pretty hot. And the usual difficulties out here being outside with the moisture and the cool, glasses fogging up and helmet fogging up, and get a lot of reflection on the inside of that helmet because you're upside down, and the light is reflecting on the inside of it a little bit, so it's hard to see out of it. But anyway, we got that one done, so it's starting to drizzle again. I'm going to go ahead and put this camera away now. And the other one will go the same way this one did. And then once I get it done, then I'll have to go around and I'll pick this up just like I did with 130 on that number 3 one, and set it up there close to that, and then I'll just have to stand on the ladder. I'll probably have to move the ladder around a few times to get different positions on there, but anyway, I'm going to get that done. Yeah, I got to go put the camera away before it gets all wet. It almost quit drizzling now. I can actually see spots of blue sky out here in places, but another black spot coming from the southwest. So I got the other 2 welded on there. I'm happy with them. I'm glad nobody else will ever see them, but I'm happy with them. Oh, I got all kinds of problems welding, you know, not knowing what I'm doing to start with. I kind of taught myself. I started out about 15 years ago or a little more with a Victor oxyacetylene torch, and kind of taught myself how to weld with oxyacetylene, and I was doing pretty good with that. I just got to where I was welding aircraft parts and stuff with it. Wasn't too bad. And then my wife and kids got me the Century 130 welder for Christmas one year, and I taught myself how to use it, and it wasn't too bad. Wouldn't show off any of the welds, but I tore apart an old camp trailer and welded in new pieces into the frame of it and made a flatbed trailer out of it. And then I've done other things with it since, and they've been functional, and sometimes not too bad and sometimes not so great. But that was self-taught, which is hard to do when you're an old fart. Well, when I started building this airplane and we started getting the internet connection and stuff, I started watching videos, and I watched weld.com and welding tips and tricks. Using those, I taught myself quite a bit more. And I got a TIG welder and started TIG welding. Now, I'm not very good with it either, but I was adequate with it. I made up some more parts for the airplane, and they are more than acceptable. My A&P mechanic, IA mechanic that I got that looked at those and approved them, said they were great. I'll never be a great welder. I've got some personal deficiencies. I can't hold steady. My eyesight is not what it used to be. I was never one that could see a gnat's eyelash at 100 yards. I've always had astigmatism. I could see close-up just beautifully. I could read all the numbers off of bearings and off of electronic parts when I was doing electronic work and things like that. My close-up vision was great, but of course as I got to a certain age it started deteriorating, and now it's the point where my focal range is just about zero. I can't change my focus from close up to medium view hardly at all. I need trifocals now to see close up and holding out at arm's length and whatnot. So that's one of the problems, is not being able to see very good, and then not being very steady and not knowing what the hell I'm doing. And I was having trouble, of course, with 130 there. Actually, I did pretty good with it until I started exceeding the duty cycle on it, and it started kicking the circuit breaker. But when I started out with the 211 here, I was having trouble with it, and I finally got it making some pretty decent welds with it, and I had multiple problems on that. My own physiological problems and personal problems, compounded with not getting CO2, the shielding gas, right on there. And then, of course, standing on my head, welding upside down and things like that. Those are all things that contribute to it. But I figured out what the big problem was, and that's this new roll of wire that I put in there. I noticed when I put it in there it had rust on it and stuff. I can see now as I'm welding, I can tell that it gets sticky in there and is not coming through right. That's part of the problem right there, is the wire is not feeding properly. But I'm too cheap to go buy a new roll of wire, and I can't get one here anyway. I'd have to mail order it, so we're going to do with what we got. The other problem is one that happens out here all the time welding outside, especially this time of the year, is my glasses and my welding helmet fogging up on me. But we make allowances for all that stuff and accept crappy welds. Like I said, nobody will ever see them but me. So the other two are welded on, they're good, and actually I'm pretty happy with the way most of those welds turned out. When everything was feeding right, they turned out really good. Well, now we get to weld on this one. I'll get to stand up on the ladder here and work on this one. I've got my welder set up there on the Bobcat. Got a ladder up there. I might have to move the ladder around a little bit to get all the way around that. I don't know. Alright, that one's all done, and I'm not embarrassed by it one bit. That one actually turned out pretty darn good, even the places where I was fogged up and couldn't see. So I'll get the welder all put away and everything. We got to run to town and get the mail and a couple other things, and by then it'll probably be dark. But the next thing to do on here is to get the wire brush and some Cora-Seal and paint those things. And once you get that done, then we can put that beam back on there. Got those plates welded on there yesterday. I was hoping to get out here and get those pilings and those plates wire brushed, cleaned up a little bit, and put a coat of Cora-Seal on them. But anyway, the weather is just too bad for me to get outside and work here. It started raining last night, rained about a half an inch I think overnight. The wind started blowing 15 to 20, 25 miles an hour here with gusts of 40 or better. Sound like a freight train going by or a jet going over. It's supposed to rain 3/4 of an inch here today, and you don't see any hope for the near future on that. It's supposed to be the same tomorrow. It's supposed to be heavy rain tomorrow. A half-inch of rain tonight again, an inch of rain tomorrow, and more rain tomorrow night, and then possibly mixed rain and snow. Also got snow in the forecast the next few days. So it's not supposed to be very nice out for working outside. Well, I guess that's stop on that project for the time being. I have to start working inside. I've got plenty to do inside. It's getting close to time to put the airplane away. Now hunting season's over, so the traffic on the roads is way down from what it was, so I can sneak that airplane home. Anyway, not much going on outside today. This is another one of the 20 projects, outdoor projects that I've got partially done that's on hold again for the time being.